Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs pregame show. And, guys, I have good news. The sun rose today after yesterday's loss, so congrats. That's probably the best news. That's the best news, is that the sun rose today. Cubs, Yankees, Anthony Rizzo revenge game, Jameson Taillon revenge game. Which one will actually happen? That's all I was thinking about while I was sitting in traffic on my way to the West Loop this afternoon. Fellas?
Let's make it positive. Let's predict the Jameson Taillon revenge game. I actually didn't get to talk to Taillon about like the feeling of going back to New York, but it'll be his. I mean, it's not like where he played 2 years there, so it's not like
he was there for 10 years.
It's not like Rizzo. Whenever he eventually returns to Wrigley, it's gonna be a little different. But I'm sure he has great memories in New York, and he had some success there as a starter there. So I'm curious to see how he performs. He's done it. It's not like he's performing under some bright lights he's not used to. He's done it before, so it'll be interesting to see.
There's a lot of potential narratives for this one, right? We got Taillon going. Cubs are 2-12 when he takes the mound. We've got Anthony Rizzo, of course. We got Gleyber Torres out there in the Cubs or in the Yankees lineup. So I don't know if that counts as a revenge game. You make the rules on that, but maybe a revenge game.
Also in their lineup.
Sure. And also Carlos Rodon's, first start for the Yankees. So there's a lot going on in this game. And I think we've kind of laid it out with Taillon pretty extensively. He doesn't need to go and throw a complete game shutout, but he needs to have a solid start. The Cubs need to either win or lose this game, not because of Jameson Taillon, unless he's going to go out there and shove.
Right.
We can't have more of the same from him.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone in the chat. We got 8 likes. Someone already even thumbs down. Whoever you are, man, come on. We just started. I'm convinced you're just here to thumbs down and leave. So hit the like to, if you haven't, if you're just joining us. I see some of the comments in the chat. There's not a lot of optimism behind Jameson Taillon Day.
Yeah, the Cubs are, 2-12 with
2-12 when he starts.
Starting.
Yes. I'll say this. We've highlighted a ton that he's really struggled against lefties, right? And you look at the Yankees lineup tonight, and of course, Anthony Rizzo is the only lefty that really scares you. So
do with that what you will.
Do with that what you will. But I'm not saying that I'm envisioning 7 strong shutout innings, but maybe this is a start that has that benefits him matchup wise, and maybe he surprised us a little bit. Because admittedly, coming into this game, I don't think anyone really feels good about it. Mm-hmm. Coming off the loss yesterday in Milwaukee, when you had a chance to take 3 or 4, it didn't happen. You blew it twice basically, and you're coming to New York where you literally have never won. Yeah. They've never won at Yankee Stadium, New Yankee Stadium at least. I know that for sure.
Yeah,
and. Taillon, like Ryan said, 2-12 in his starts. Something's got to give, man.
I mean, I think on paper, going to New York is tough. The Yankees are always a competitive team, but I think timing-wise, it's not bad for the Cubs. Yankees are 5-5 in their last 10. They got shellacked by the Orioles yesterday. They're not playing that well, but they're not in a similar spot to the Cubs, but in terms of how far back they are in the division, really needing to continue playing well to stay in both that and the wild card races and stuff. So there would be worse times, I think, to run into this New York team. But really, this is an important one, and I know that a lot of people aren't that confident with Taillon on the mound, but you really need to have a good series here. I think in a vacuum, a split with Milwaukee on the road, 4 very competitive games, you'd be like, yeah, you take that in most years. But given where the Cubs are and how far they are back in the division, kind of needed more than a split, right, to feel good heading into this break. So this is some people in the chat and social media and maybe Jed or Carter themselves have already made up their minds as to what this team is doing a few weeks from now. But all the team can do, all the players can do, is play the games on the schedule and try to change that conversation. And so it starts with having a good 3 games in New York here, and then you see what happens after the All-Star break.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely it. Is you got 3 games, and like if they had gone on a really nice run to start July, if they had just kind of kept things going when they had that homestand last week, like we're probably having a different conversation. We're not like these games aren't like, though they don't have the feeling of must-win games. Like when you're saying that like they kind of have to sweep the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, which is a lot to ask.
Sure,
but it kind of feels like they can't afford to lose this series. Going 2-1 may not be enough. Like they kind of feel like they have to sweep this series, which just feels it's a tall order. Right? Yeah. It feels like the chances of that happening are low, but that's the position that they've played themselves into at this point. And
I also would like to just point out for anyone wondering, the Anthony Rizzo jersey on the table is mine, and I did bring it here. He could hit 5 home runs tonight. There will be, and there never will be, Cody, any Anthony Rizzo slander. Okay?
No, I have no. If
I didn't mean from you. I just mean if anybody's wondering why they're, yeah.
And I don't expect there to be Anthony Rizzo slander in the chat. I do see one comment saying about how he was like last to practices and games, which was kind of like a thing that you kind of heard from the grapevine from, media and stuff, that maybe he wasn't the leader that everyone thought he was. Whatever. He's still a great dude. Was a big part in the community, was with the franchise for 10 years, the captain of the team that won the World Series to break a 108-year curse. The guy, in my opinion, of all of them, deserves the single statue outside beautiful historic Wrigley Field. If there was one, if they did just make one, he would be the one. And right now, as we sit here, is like I've said it a handful of times, man, Kevin Alcantara better pan out, because the Cubs at first base, since he's been gone, I think Brendan tweeted today, has a 0.0 F4 altogether. That's Frank Schwindel. That's Trey Mancini. That's Eric Hosmer.
And that, I assume,
Alfonso Rivas
is only not negative because of how hot Schwindel was.
Like
that one
Cody
September,
Bellinger.
right?
August,
like Cody Bellinger had some,
right?
Some good defense there before he decided to get hot, right? Like,
Matt Mervis didn't save that either.
Yeah, Matt Mervis, like, it hasn't been great at first base since he left. And listen, like, we're not gonna sit here on the pregame show and talk about the trade deadline of 2021 and whether it was a good move or not. But listen, if they had just paid him a little bit more, look at this roster right now, and you have Anthony Rizzo with the numbers he's put up in New York this year and even last year, and you're like, wow.
Well, this year he's been on the struggle bus hard since like May.
Recently.
Real bad.
But still, when you look at the overall numbers, though, it's still better than what the Cubs have at first base.
Yeah.
I would also say,
you at least still get the defense.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, Jack R. says it's July 7th. Cubs don't have to win this series.
I was going to respond to that.
I disagree. I think they have to win this series. At a minimum, they have to win this series.
I think it's, again, like, of course it's a long season, but we just know it's the season is shorter, right? Because it is
shorter, really.
It is not bookended, but the trade deadline is a significant date here, right? And so, of course, like, I don't think their decision for the deadline or how this season goes is made in New York this weekend. But I do sort of, I would push back on the it's a long season or there's time notion. Like, at some point it does get to a territory where you're kind of hoping that they play a way they haven't played literally all year.
Yeah.
Like,
for, like, brief stretches,
at a later date.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe they could, right, if this team stayed together for 162 games. I don't think that's going to be the case unless they show something soon, and they have to play better than they have at some point. Yeah. It's a nice hypothetical, right? But, like, they do need to do it, maybe not literally this weekend, but sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think it's when we talked about, like, in May when they were going through the rough stretches, we're like, it's early. This team has talent. They could – turn it around. The division isn't out of reach yet. All that stuff we said 2 months ago. Now, yeah, it's July 7th. They're 8 games behind the Reds out of first place now, which is starting to get into running away with the territory.
It's a lot.
And they have, I don't remember the exact number of games, but once they have these 3, they have the All-Star break, and then they have about 2.5 weeks till the trade deadline, with probably less than that until Jed and Carter have made up their minds which direction they're going. So it really is not a lot of time. So when I say this is a must-win series and approaching must-sweeps territory, like, that's not hyperbole. Like, that's just kind of where the Cubs are at right now.
Me and Jared kind of talked about it yesterday, like the trade deadline in the second segment of yesterday's show. And, I think we both kind of agreed on the fact that these games are important for the fact of the Cubs just not completely selling off. And because I think if they're around where they're at right now, they're 5 under, 6 under?
Mm-hmm.
If they're even around this point, or hopefully closer to 500 come the deadline, then I think it's more likely that they do a combination of buying and selling.
Soft on each side, yeah, sure.
More so than just either just full-on buying or full-on selling. Because they have a lot of pieces that they could sell if they really wanted to just full-on sell. But when you consider 2024 and that truly being the first year where we all projected that this team would be a real playoff contender, not just like hoping things worked out or not. To me, you can't just sell all these pieces off. You sell some, but not all of them. So, again, the only way that I see them full-on selling is if it's just a free fall from here on out to the deadline. And that's why, yes, Jack and anyone else who disagrees, they need to take 2 or 3 here, and they need
at least,
and they need to play well against Boston and the Nationals and the Cardinals and the White Sox.
I think the other thing too, just about this weekend, and maybe just from an optics perspective, but Milwaukee and Cincinnati play each other, right? So somebody's winning games this weekend. One of those 2 teams, both of them cannot go 0 for 3 here over the weekend. Like, if it's the Reds, like, you do the combinations, like, there's a chance you're staring a double-digit deficit in this division. If you don't play well in New York, that's a lot. Yeah. Like, and you go back to Carter Hawkins' comments, I think to you guys in the media, Ryan, about kind of looking at where you are in the division and then also asking, like, is this a legitimate threat to win a World Series? And how do you approach sort of supplementing that, like, 9-10 games back? Like, that's not a team you're going to really push any chips in for. Like, you could be buying for the future, and I think they should be doing that either way, like adding pieces that you think can help you going forward, maybe stuff similar to Efros for Wesneski, right? Like trading for cost-controlled guys you envision that can maybe take some starts for you. But, again, it's not a do-or-die weekend, but it does have the potential to put you in a pretty bad spot. By the same token, right, like you flip some things, maybe you're 6 out by the All-Star break if things go a certain way. Like, that feels less dramatic than 8, 9, 10,
It also
right?
doesn't help that the Reds are just winning.
Red hot.
They're red hot. It's not even just been like a week or two thing.
Like
It's been like a month of them just winning. And I do feel...
Well, we were waiting for a team in this division to do that, right? Like, Milwaukee has kind of been, like, steady at where they're at.
Milwaukee's been exactly what we expected Milwaukee.
We were waiting, like, with nobody kind of doing it and the Cardinals not performing the way a lot of us thought. We were waiting for a team to do that. Obviously, everybody on this podcast and I think present company in the YouTube chat was hoping it was going to be the Chicago Cubs. But so far, it has not.
Right. So. Gary in the chat, Sarah, if you want to scroll up a little bit, he asks, may you please address why the Cubs are not putting Dansby Swanson on the injured list? They need an extra body for the series. Ryan, you know more about this stuff. You were at the ballpark yesterday. I'm going to assume that there's still no, like, definitive decision on if they're going to put him on the injured list or not. But he does kind of have a point because, like yesterday when Morel was grabbing his neck after hitting that double, we were like, who's going to play second?
Yeah.
And we were like, maybe Ian Happ, but then who's going to play left field? Like, it is a valid question because there is an injury, then they're kind of screwed.
Before Ryan goes, my non-professional opinion is they always do this. Like, this is what they always do. They always wait longer than it might seem obvious to us. And I'm not in the clubhouse. I'm not on the medical staff, but they always do this is my answer. Like, every time we ask this question, why are they playing a man down? They always do it.
I mean, I also wonder if, like, what they've seen that, like, because, like, with Madrigal, right away. The next day they put him on the
That's
IL,
true.
brought Wisdom back up, right?
Yeah,
so in a
that's
sense,
true.
they didn't.
That's
They
true.
did.
Yeah,
it
no,
with
that is true.
Madrigal. So I'm
They
curious.
didn't do it with the one guy you.
right, like the one guy. They
Right.
they went the next day and put him on the IL. Dansby. So something tells me that what they've seen from Dansby's imaging and all that stuff is they don't know that it's severe enough to necessitate an IL stint, because you also think about they have this All-Star break which helps with that a little bit. But if you're going to put Dansby on the IL, like you could backdate it to yesterday, I guess. That means you'll still lose him through that through that Boston series.
Yeah.
So you won't have him from New York, you won't
That
have him
makes
for
sense.
Boston.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a chance that he's good to go, even on Sunday, right? And then he gets the All-Star break. I know he told reporters that they decided he's not going to play in the All-Star game. So then you get that whole break, and then you come back, and hopefully he's good to go for that Boston series. That could be the case, in that the Cubs don't think that they weighing that option of, do we need to put Dansby Swanson on the IL right now, potentially lose him through Boston. I'm also, to answer Gary's question, I know he has Jake Slaughter in mind.
That's the only reason he's
I know he has Jake Slaughter in mind, but I also am curious, like, whether it's Jake Slaughter or whoever it's going to be, who's that guy in the minor leagues that's going to come up right now and, like, save this, that 26th man, right? It's like, what are the chances that, like, the guy you bring up to replace Dansby Swanson actually
100%.
leads this team to victory of the next 3 games?
You're right.
That's the options you weigh, I think, and we'll see. We got
I
the whole
will,
weekend.
like, to his point, like, it is a risk, like, these next 3 days. Sure. Especially if Morel or Horner get hurt, like, knock on all the wood around you. Like, if one of those two gets hurt, they are sitting here like, shit. You know what I mean? So hopefully those guys are fine these next 3 days. And you're right, and he's able to rest up and be able to play against Boston at beautiful historic Wrigley Field next weekend. So
yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they haven't ruled out him playing in New York, even if it's only on Sunday. Like, that's better than losing him in New York and Boston, right? So, like,
that's true.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a weird balance that, like, the ability to backdate it helps with those kind of things, because you can give a guy 3 days to see where he's at 3 days from now. Because for some guys and for some specific injuries, like, that's enough to the whole recovery to make guys feel better and they can play, right? 3 days, that 3 days is actually a luxury, and I know a lot of people don't like it because of Gary's specific question, which is valid. It's like, who's like, you're down a man, especially a middle infielder, which you don't have a lot of on the major league roster right now.
Which is weird to say, because we've been complaining about how many, like, too many.
Exactly.
That they had.
But the flip side is losing Dansby for 10 days, even with the All-Star break there, you're losing him for 10 days when you could potentially only lose him for like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think that's the balance that you have to play with.
Before we get to, we can go through the lineup here in a few minutes and then do who you got. I wanted to bring up that we are doing the CHGO Sports Crosstown Series Takeover later this month. The Cubs and Sox, July 26th, that's 7:10 p.m. So we'll be at the Cell, as I'm always calling it, the Cell.
It's the Cell. Even Comiskey, if you're so
the first series is at the Cell. Again, July 26th. We're doing a pregame meetup at 5:30 at the Carrig Pub, which is at 6119 147th Street in Oak Forest. And I believe there's like a shuttle from there to the ballpark. I think that's how we're going to be doing it. I believe all of us will be there. Obviously, we'll be there, and hopefully the Cubs haven't completely fallen apart and the games actually matter. So come hang out for that. If you don't want to go to the Cell because it's the Cell, you can go to beautiful historic Wrigley Field August 16th when the White Sox come to Wrigley. We still haven't decided what bar we're going to do the pregame meetup at, but we'll be sitting in section 425 on the right field side. Games at 7:05. And again, when you buy the ticket to do the event, it's for your ticket to the game, and then I think you get a free T-shirt. It's one of the new baseball tees that we started selling, which are pretty sick. Not gonna lie. So come hang out.
You can find the link on allchgo.com. Right?
allchgo.com. We have it pinned. We have it as a pinned tweet on CHGO Cubs Twitter account. Also, we just started a CHGO Cubs Threads account. So if you're a Threads person, go follow us there.
that I don't know about you guys. I'm a big fan of that app. So shout out to Zuckerberg. That's my nice thing I'll say about Zuckerberg. Anyway, yeah. So the lineup tonight, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I will say the least.
In a word,
It's all righties.
Yeah,
I think,
all
right?
righties are going up against a lefty, and Carlos Rodon making his first start with the Yankees, right? And it's his season debut because he's been out like this entire season. Sarah, do you want to bring up that graphic for us real quick?
I only made the Cubs one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the Cubs
We
lineup.
got Cubs lineup.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just gonna say
There we go.
you got the hot hands in there. You got Yan Gomes who homered yesterday. Trey Mancini had a big hit yesterday too.
Yeah.
You got the hot hands, man.
I'll say this about Gomes. I'll say this about Gomes hitting fourth. Like he's the one who's seen Carlos Rodon the most, and he has mashed lefties all season. That said, how you're putting Cody Bellinger that far down the lineup after the day that he just had yesterday, he's having a 12-game hit string. I don't care that he's a lefty. I think he's playing well enough right now that you got to put him up there in that top 3 or 4 spot and ride it because that's how well he's playing. That's probably my big annoyance of this lineup. I've said this before. They really play the matchup game a lot, and sometimes they do it too much. Cody Bellinger is the hottest hitter in this lineup right now, dude. Like, how is he hitting 7th? I don't get it. I get that he's a lefty. I get that Rodon's a lefty. I don't care. He's the hottest hitter in the lineup. And they've struggled with Ian Happ in the 3-hole when it comes to driving in runs. He's been better over the last month in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. I'll give him that much. But it's not like he's tearing the ball off, like tearing it up right now, especially in those situations. That's my big gripe is the fact that Bellinger's that low. I don't care that it's lefty versus lefty. That he's just giving them good at bats right now, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have a problem riding the hot hands. We've seen this offense be inconsistent enough. I think I just look at that lineup and I go, 2.5 years into a rebuild, and we have
That's not a rebuild.
Yan Gomes DHing and Trey Mancini, who cannot play first base, back out there at first base. It just is one of those, we've waited a long time, traded people, done all this work, and this is what we're throwing out there in what feels like a important series. But, hopefully it works, whatever.
Jack R. says, look at Bellinger's stats against Rodon. I think he's faced him 7 times. He's 0 for 7. I think that's it.
It's a small sample size.
It's a very small sample size.
I mean, I look at it as you don't know what the hell you're going to get with Rodon anyway.
Sure.
He was out, a left forearm strain was what kept him out. He's making his Yankees debut today. He only went 4, his longest start in his 3 rehab assignment starts was 4 innings on June 25th. And again, that's AAA. So if you're a major league pitcher, you should be, not struggling in your rehab assignment. I don't know. I don't have an issue with the lineup because I don't know what the hell we're going to see out of Carlos Rodon. When he's healthy, he's a great pitcher. We know that. We saw him on the south side, in San Francisco, whatever. Great pitcher when he's healthy. Mm-hmm. When he's coming off, an injury that's kept him out for the first 3 months of the year, I don't know what to expect. So I can't.
Yeah. Well, and this is
We'll
also
see.
a game where I would hope that, depending on how the Yankees go about things, David Ross is going to have to be probably active in this one. I mean, this is one we could see a reliever come from the Yankees bullpen in the 3rd or 4th inning. You might get a completely different lineup by the middle of the game. Yeah. So
I will say it's interesting to see Amaya in there with Taillon, and we've only seen Amaya in there specifically with Kyle Hendricks. It feels like in recent games at least when Amaya has played. So I do like to see Amaya in there with more than just Kyle Hendricks, just because he continues to really shock me. Again, didn't play the last couple of years, had injury problems, stuff like that, and he's probably been one of the biggest bright spots in terms of prospects that have come up and contributed this year. So I like to see him getting a little bit more of a run. A lot of people in my Twitter mentions and stuff have complained a ton about why he's not playing that much, and to me it's just dude, the guy's a rookie, didn't play the last couple of years. You got to ease this guy in. Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about this before. One of the things I would keep in mind with Amaya, I said this, I can't remember, maybe you, me, and Kevin were on here. Oh. I promise you, they want Miguel Amaya to work and be a thing because he's a young, relatively catcher. Like that, they don't have to pay a lot of money. I promise you, they're not holding him back because they love Tucker Barnhart.
Trying to ruin his development.
They want him to develop. I promise you, they would much prefer being able to throw Miguel Amaya out there than having to pay 33 or older catchers millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I promise they're not like intentionally like stunting his development. They're doing what they think is best, given exactly what Cody said.
So you this is actually will be the 5th time Miguel Amaya catches Taillon this year.
Really? That's interesting.
Maybe
it's
not,
because
not,
I'm
not full games.
Okay.
Probably maybe not because the look. I just have what Baseball Reference tells me. In 4 different games catching Taillon, an 8.27 ERA, 10.46 OPS. So then the numbers don't look great. But I also like wonder how much does that have? How much do these types of numbers have to do with the catcher specifically versus like Taillon's had his struggles? We know that, like, especially against lefties.
If I'm looking at catcher numbers and it's Wilson Contreras, they matter a lot. If it's anybody else, I can't make any judgment.
There you go.
And
that's that energy I love.
Just pointing out what the stats are. Like I know we've heard from everyone on the pitching staff, like just how much they enjoy working with Miguel Amaya. Like as a youngster who missed a bunch of time with injuries, that he comes prepared. He calls a good game. Solid, soft factors as far as catching goes. So. Yeah, do with the numbers what you will. I'm just like, that's what we've gotten in the time that Miguel Amaya has caught Jameson Taillon. So we'll see how that goes today. I will say with Taillon, like, there is probably something to knowing the guys he's facing, right? Like, he was with the Yankees for 2 years. He knows most of these guys in that lineup. He knows what makes them tick, what, the conversations that they have. Like, there's obviously something to them knowing him, but there's part of it is he knows those hitters too, just from watching them work every day for 2 years. So we'll see.
I mean, and this is one too where it's as we go forward here. I know Brendan has talked a lot about what Taillon's doing, what the Cubs have done with him, how they're trying to kind of get him back, maybe a little closer to how he was successful in New York. So each time we see these starts, it's always interesting to see how he mixes these pitches and how he's attacking these hitters, because a lot of the changes and some of that stuff haven't necessarily worked, but. This is, again, it's a 4-year deal. It's a work in progress that they're going to try to get right. So each time he goes out there, it's a chance to look and say, okay, what are they going to try to do to get better results this time? Yeah. So
I think it was, you want to scroll up a little bit there, Sarah? Dustin Combs, he says Rodon's expected pitch count to be around 65 to 70 pitches. Hopefully he's out no later than 4 innings. And I guess that's not really surprising. I don't know if that's actually true, but I'm going to play it as
I'm
it
sure.
is.
I mean, he only went 3 or 4 innings, so I'm sure it is. But I also think, like, this is one where if he's pumping fastballs down the middle, by all means, swing away.
Yeah.
But, this is the type of thing where I would like to see a little bit of patience, at least just, again, unless he's pumping fastballs or hanging breaking balls. Like, this is a guy making his debut in New York. It's a tough place to pitch for the stadium, the fans, the contract he's on, and just that reputation. Like, don't go up there and make it easy for him, right? Like, if he's on a pitch count, you might be able to get into their bullpen. Let's run that pitch count up. Let's make sure that he's got his stuff tonight before we're swinging away and making contact. Like, this just feels like one of those games. Like, let's make him work. Let's see what he's got. Like, he's the one making the debut. The pressure is on him. Don't make it easy for him.
Yeah. All right. Who you got? Are we gonna do the one that we said we were gonna do, or are we gonna do the real one? Or are we gonna do?
We can do both.
Like I'm totally okay with just doing Taillon for all of us. Like I'm like whatever we got to do to save the season, brother. Like that's how I feel. But
I want to win. I want to win who you got.
Whatever. Fine. We'll do the ones that everyone put in here.
In spirit, we are all taking Jameson Taillon.
In spirit. Even
the Cubs
Luke is
cannot
taking
be 2-13 when he takes them out. He doesn't. He doesn't have the loss in all those games. But that
Sarah,
can't
if you
happen.
want to show the graphic that has Taillon on it, yes, just show it. Yes, manifest it.
We're trying.
We're
folks.
trying.
We are trying.
We're trying. Everyone's taking Taillon. All right, now show the real one. All right. I'm going Mancini because I couldn't decide between Mancini or Wisdom, and then Brendan was like, I'll take Mancini. So me and him were fighting over Mancini, and I was like, you should take Wisdom because he really needs it.
He's from someone else. Yeah.
He needs it. We're sacrificing whatever to save the season.
Yeah.
So
I got Seiya.
yeah.
I'm
Nash is
going with
lefties.
my boy
I
Cristiano
actually like him,
Morel.
and he's had a good last 3 games. He's had hits.
He's got Morel.
I'm going Morel.
And then Jared's
got
going
Nico.
Nico.
We'll
And
see.
Luke, while he's on vacation, he is just letting all these picks. It's probably because he's in first right now, and he just is. He's waiting to see.
Yeah. Also, this is it seems like a lot to suggest that not only would he be homering, but he'd be doing it oppo. But man, no Nick Madrigal with the short porch.
Oh,
Bad timing.
Hey, we saw him almost go out.
could have had that third. Could have had that third barrel. Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't. Do you even need to hit a barrel in the short porch?
Probably not.
Well, I guess the Barnhart deep fly ball yesterday or 2 days ago would have been out at Yankee Stadium.
There you go.
I was very upset.
Bully for him.
Anyway, all right. We'll be back here after the game, literally right after the game. Barb, I haven't seen you in the chat, but if you're watching, literally after the game, we'll be here
Right after the
Live.
game, Barb.
live. CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Cubs, Yankees, Taillon revenge game manifest. Rizzo, you can get a hit or two for my hit parlay, but please don't kill me tonight. All right. See y'all back here after the game. Later.